Dr. Neubrander is the medical doctor, he is a medical doctor, by the way, but he's the medical director for the Road to Recovery Clinic that specializes in neurodevelopmental and autism spectrum disorders. He's the former medical director of the Comprehensive Neuroscience Center and the former medical director of autism research for the International Brain Research Foundation. He served on the scientific councils for the International Brain Research Foundation, and in his private practice, he dedicates the majority of his time treating children with autism spectrum disorders, ADD, ADHD, and other neurodevelopmental and learning disabilities. Since the mid-1990s, Are we up? Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, you guys. Since the 1990s, Dr. Neubrander has treated over 4,500 individuals on the autism spectrum. He's also known as the father of methyl B12. I hope this works out better for you, Dr. Neubrander. Methyl B12. And the innovator of HBOT protocols, that's hyperbaric oxygen treatment, and I know that Dr. Neubrander will go into that in more detail. Dr. Neubrander received his MD from Loma Linda University in 1975. He completed his residency in pathology at the University of South Florida and is board certified in environmental medicine. He's been trained in QEEG and Loretta-based neurofeedback protocol development for the neurodevelopmental and autism spectrum disorders. He's lectured throughout the United States and I believe internationally as well, haven't you, Dr. Neubrander? His lectures are scientific and evidence-based. This is a very key, important factor to consider. And he's the co-author of several peer-reviewed articles. He sits on our advisory board as well here at USAAA. It's with great pleasure that I introduce Dr. Jim Neubrander.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I've been asked today to talk about the interactions between the environment and human health. It's something that the National Institute of Mental Health is now paying attention to. There's no such thing as a genetic epidemic, so therefore autism is not a genetic epidemic, it's something else. And so even they are feeling that there is something to do with the environment. Everything I'm going to go through here, you're going to have, every slide you're going to have available to you, so you don't have to take notes. If any of you heard me speak before, I sort of do it kind of rapidly and with enthusiasm, and they've given me a time limit on top of this. So therefore, good luck, sit back, relax, watch the show, and you will have all of it available to you, every single slide, okay? All right, basically, the planet Earth. You know, what's happening to us? You know, Earth is being destroyed, there's no doubt about it. What are we doing about it? We have nuclear power plants that are generating hazardous radioactive waste everywhere. Pollution is everywhere. It's in our air and we're all being affected by it. We're told breathe, deeply, everything's fine. Go ahead, breathe again. And what I really think is happening is now follow me is when we look at it. We have spilled oil ruining our oceans and not only ours but everyone else's oceans also. Our water supplies are contaminated and our lives are hanging in the balance. We put garbage in, so when we put garbage in, what comes out? Garbage out. And so we have to save our world. It's up to us. That's your duty and that's my duty. We have a beautiful world. We live in it. You know, we need to save all of it. We need to save our oceans. We need to save our lakes. We need to save the beautiful mountains we have and our meadows. We need to save our rainforests. And we definitely need to save our animals before they become extinct. They're yelling out to us, please hurry. And we need to hurry. Cute faces are worth saving. It's worth saving the funny birds, the graceful birds. It's worth saving the red birds, the blue birds, the tiny birds, and the great big strong birds. It's really worth saving our little love bugs and all the other insects rather than just always trying to kill them. They have a place and a role to play for us. It's important to save our busy little honeybees because they make it possible for us to live as they pollinate what we do. We need to save our beautiful butterflies, blessing us with color. We need to save our funny little friends that live in the woods or sell us insurance. You know, we need to save our delicate coral reefs, our big fish, our little fish. And we need to save Nemo, all the little Nemos that are out there. There's thousands of fish still in the sea, and many of them are going to make love someday. And when they do, baby fishes will follow. Mom and dad fish will mom and dad fish take the bait when the fish medical association says to them, you need to take your fishy vaccines. And then they say on top of it, the sooner you take your fishy vaccines, the better. And because we've proven your fishy vaccines can't hurt you at all, and I'm not saying we should never have any vaccines. What I am saying is when and how and what schedules. And I take issue with the word proven. Has it really been proven that the fishy vaccines are really safe for our fish? The reason I say that is autism catches 1 in 100 fish. Have they caught one of yours already? And will they catch the next one? The latest statistics are 19% of children, of siblings, will be on the spectrum. What else are we doing that's hurting our children? We're contaminating our food supply with toxic chemicals and heavy metals. And therefore, we have families to protect. But who's protecting us? Is the Environmental Protection Agency protecting us, or are we out there in a war against corporate profits? Who sits on the left and who sits on the right? Which one weighs in the most? When we're protecting the environment, does that one weigh in the most on the left, or are we making a lot of money and the corporate profits? Are they the ones on the right that stays and weighs in the most? The only answer to the problem is thumbs up to going green. We are in a chess match to save our world. Every country in the world is involved. Some are playing the game fairly, others are watching, and some are cheating very much. What do we know about the environment? Very little. What do we know about? What we know is very little. What we don't know is quite a lot. So therefore, I ask you, can medicine solve the problem? Or is it science's problem to solve? Or the government's? Or industries? Or the people's? It's all of our problem to solve, no matter where we live in the world. Because we are the people. We are the problem, and we are the answer. So autism, really, go green or perish, including the entire world. This is from Dr. Martha Herbert, MD, PhD from Harvard area in Boston. She said the following: autism, thinking the unthinkable. To cling to a purely genetic explanation of autism is a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion that one lives in a comfortable and rational world, where new chemicals and technologies always mean progress. Experts are always objective and thorough. Corporations are honest, and authorities can be trusted. That human actions, rather than genetics, might be responsible for compromising the health of a significant proportion of a whole generation is, so painful as to be for many, unthinkable. Alan McGowan, from the president of the Scientific Institute for Public Information, said environmental pollution is one of the most serious problems facing humanity today. And on the left, from the 1920s, and to the right, on the 1980s, you can see the number of chemicals, and they haven't been tested. The majority, vast majority, very few have, in fact. It's a scientific consensus statement on environmental agents on neurodevelopmental disorders came to this conclusion with high confidence. They basically said from alcohol and lead, mercury, PCBs, all the way down to fluoride, food additives, and nicotine, these are bothering us in the world. Here we see Roberts did a study with children where the mothers were living close to organochlorine like DDT, those kind of pesticides, and they had a 6-to-1 increased risk of developing autism the closer they lived or the more pesticide that was used on those fields. Here we see Palmer's study with environmental mercury release in Texas, how it related to autism. And here's the autism rates in 1990 to 93. The darker the color, the worse. Here it is in 1998 to 2001. You can see the difference right here. The more dark colors, the worse it is. How does that relate? Autism rates right here. In counties, paralleled the amount of chemicals, paralleled the amount of total toxicity. And they went on to say that, on average, for every 1,000 pounds of mercury eliminated into the atmosphere, autism increased 61%. And of interest, the oldest mercury mine in the country was right here. Mercury doesn't cause autism. There are multiple things that cause the autisms, okay? And the Asperger's. There's not one thing. There's a host of things that we're doing to our environment and our lives that affect it, and we have epigenetics playing the role, not some magic gene that we're looking for. Here's a benchmark study that was done by the Environmental Working Group and published in July 14, 2005. Basically, they found 287 chemicals that were detected in the umbilical cord blood. 208 of them would cause birth defects or abnormal development in animals, and 217 are toxic to the nervous system. Here we see acute lymphocytic leukemia was up 62%, childhood brain cancer up 40%, preterm births were up 23%, and autism 10 times increase in their study. 5% of all U.S. couples are infertile, up to 50% of pregnancies end in a miscarriage, 3 to 5% of babies born have some kind of birth defect, and the prime suspect, they say, is early environmental pollution. So what are the different classifications? There's no way to go into it and educate a large group like this of mixed people who could, some care a lot, some care very little. So let me just go through this very quickly. When we talk about mercury or heavy metals, mercury comes 50% from volcanic eruptions and 50% from human-generated waste. The greatest place they come from is power plants and coal burning. Coal-powered fire plants account for approximately 50% of this, the electricity, and it's 50 tons per year. Cement kilns are up there to about 12 tons per year. Manufacturing plants where we make bleach, and we make detergents, and we make vinyls and polyvinyls, the things we like to keep us comfortable in our homes. This is where we have it. It's not just our dental amalgams. It comes from trash incinerators when we burn all kinds of things, not just medical waste, but all kinds of things. It comes from gold mining, which is called the dirtiest industry in the world for mercury. Medical uses, dental amalgams, they get the kick, that they're it. They're a piece of the puzzle, and we should all pay attention to that. We don't need to add something more to an environment that's already out there. We don't have to add injury to insult. Thimerosal, it's being phased out in a lot of things, but it is still there. Thermometers and blood pressure units with mercury in it are being phased out. And over-the-counter preparations, some of the antiseptics and ointments, etc., still have mercury in them. Mascara oftentimes does, skincare products. And the famous one, anything from salt water to freshwater fish have it. Seafood of all types, it's there. Fish in particular, the ones that we would be most likely eating, grouper, you would see swordfish, tuna, and sea bass. These are the ones patients most lawfully eat, and you can see the list down there and get all of them. Other major heavy metal contaminants, lead, aluminum, cadmium, nickel, antimony, arsenic, tin, and thallium. We don't have time to get into all of those, but those are out there on your food, and we are exposed to them every day. When we have the organochlorine pesticides, what are they? These are the things that you've heard about, like chlordane, DDT. That's the most famous that will probably, everybody's heard about. They persist for years in the environment. They were largely banned in the United States in the late 60s, 70s, but we send them to other countries who send them back on our food supplies. They bioaccumulate in the food chain, and we get them right back. The environmental tragedy that you might have all heard about, the brown pelican from California. They were, becoming extinct. What they found is that the organochlorines were put on the farmers' fields. They were washed into the lakes and oceans. The little organisms would eat them. The tiny fish would eat those. The bigger fish would eat them. The pelicans would dive down. They would eat them. And what that would happen is they could not calcify the eggs. They'd lay the eggs, they'd sit on their eggs, and their eggs would break. So they were basically happening. So my question to you is, when we're sending it to other countries right now and it's coming right back to us because they don't have the controls of who sprays what On what? How much? What is it doing to the eggs and the sperm? Is it affecting us today? And I believe the answer is yes. Organophosphate pesticides have largely replaced the organochlorines. This is what we use in our homes today. They're very, very common. We have to kill that little bug because bugs are bad. We have to kill those little scary bugs, okay? The ones you might have heard about is Easy Off. You might have heard about Dursban. So you can look at this list on your own. They were first discovered in the 1850s, and then they were used in World War II by the Germans for nerve gas. What did they do? They cause excessive sweating, salivation, abdominal pains, diarrhea. I'm not saying the children on the spectrum have that, but they might have some of it. Okay, so I don't want to overstate the case and live in a world that we have to live in a incubator, but it is important to pay attention. And the chronic toxicity, what it goes along with is behavioral symptoms, including depression, motor and neuromuscular symptoms, and cardiac symptoms. And they are present in fish. They are not broken down easily, etc. Polyaromatic hydrocarbons, what are these? These are things that we're all doing. It's incomplete combustion of things like diesel and gasoline. It's incomplete combustion of grilling on the charcoal grill outside, okay? And they're not good. They're worldwide. They're one of the most notable worldwide ones. They're heavy. They don't get into the air very much, but they get into the water supply, etc. They cause DNA damage, premature delivery, low birth weight, etc. They cause an increased incidence of asthma, low IQ scores, and an increased incidence, it's been reported in published literature, of behavioral problems in ages 6 to 8 years old. When we talk about the polybrominated dibenzodioxins and furans, let's just focus on the word dioxins. That's what you have to know. So think of dioxins. We've all heard of dioxins. What are they? They're flame retardants. They are the byproducts of hard plastics that we use in computer casings and TV casings. They're flame retardants, okay, that we use. They're endocrine disruptors. So a woman who has this is not going to have the endocrine system work well. Men who are exposed to it will be exposed to an estrogen-like effect. They accumulate, and they cause all kinds of toxic things, and for lack of time, you can read about it later. Basically, the polybrominated diphenyl ethers. What are these? These are flame retardants in furniture foam, computers, and televisions. They affect brain development and they affect the thyroid gland. And these, too, are endocrine disruptors. And they've suspected these of being problems for years. They accumulate in breast milk, adipose tissue. The brain is mostly fat, so it accumulates in these places. All right? And they've shown that it affects children with physical and psychological development between ages 1 and 5 years, including loss of IQ by 5.5 to 8 points. When we look at the polychlorinated biphenyls, what are these? These go in lubricants, insulators, and coolants, and we've all used those. Those are found in the hydrosphere, the biosphere, and the atmosphere. So what happens is they accumulate. They get into the air. There's no safe place for PCBs anymore. They get into the air and the atmosphere. Rain comes down. The little organisms eat them, then bigger things eat them, etc. They also get into our lakes and streams and ponds, and they've contaminated. And right now, they too are endocrine disruptors. And they mimic estradiol, and they'd have no place that we can get away from them. PCBs are everywhere, and we have done it to ourselves, okay? When we look at another form of dioxins, the polychlorinated dibenzodioxins and furans, they're similar to the other one I said, okay? They're involved in PCV production, industrial bleaching, and incineration. And again, they accumulate and they stay in our system and our environment forever. They are endocrine disruptors. Once again, they do the same things. The most potent member that you all may have heard about is TCDD. This was Agent Orange. And there's been many areas in the world that have been contaminated by these. Times Beach, Missouri, Love Canal, you might have heard about this. They tried to poison the president of the Ukraine with this. He survived. The Irish pork crisis was fairly recently. So we'll come down to the polychlorinated naphthalenes. These are in wood preservatives, varnishes, machine lubricating oils, waste incineration. They're a common contaminant in PCBs, which are everywhere, and they're accumulating. We can't get rid of them. They damage the liver, the kidney, the skin, and other things. And the perfluorinated chemicals, these are interesting because these come into your life. They're active ingredients in the breakdown products of Teflon, Scotchgard, and carpet protectors. And they're the most common thing that they will put into food wrappers. They accumulate again. They have unique properties of stain resistance, oil and water resistance. They protect the food wrappers. So what they do is that contact surfaces of things that we use, like microwave popcorn bags, food wrappers, pizza box liners, etc., nonstick cookware. These are where we're getting these things, okay? And they never degrade. This is unpublished work of Dr. Tapan Ayuda, who works with either NYU or Presbyterian or somebody in New York. His plasma toxic chemical panel, and he found these things in 324 children on the spectrum. Basically, hexane was in 67% of these. And these are in all kinds of products that we use, and for lack of time, you can read it on your own. Trust me, it's bad stuff, and many people in China died because of it as they were working on making iPods, etc. Okay? Pentane, it's another bad one, another solvent. Perchloroethylene, this is in dry cleaning. We know it is. Tetrachloroethylene is in dry cleaning products. Again, you have plenty that you'll be able to read on your own. I haven't had enough time to be able to let you know everything, but there's enough here that you can find out what you need if you're interested. And the rest of you just say, okay, Neubrander's done talking, we're glad that's over. Aerochlors, okay? Same thing, isopropyl acetone in nail polish and perfumes. Xylene is a terrible solvent that we are exposed to in the benzenes. That was in the plasma, the blood of these children. He also did it in 297 subjects with urine, and he found similar type of things. So, is there any proof? What does this have to do with autism? Basically, what do the research studies show? Here, Burton said that PCBs alter brain development. And they affected the auditory cortex in rats, which is something that we have with these children, auditory issues and sensory issues. It affected monkeys with the dopamine system, rats with the behavior patterns, and in children we don't know what it does, but we think it affects neuropsychological functioning. When we look at D'Amelio's study, basically he talks about peroxidase gene variants in North America versus Italy. Organophosphates, he said, are routinely used in insecticides within the household because we have to kill that dang little bug. He's going to hurt us, okay? He's a scary little bug, and I don't like bugs. There's safe ways to do it, so I don't want to be misquoted. I'm oftentimes misquoted. There's a significant association they found between autism and PON1 variants. Edelson tested blood in these children, and he found toxic levels of many chemicals higher than the maximum adult safely or tolerance dose for adults. Kennett basically did a study with PCBs and found that PCBs may contribute to common neurodevelopmental disorders, especially in populations with heritable imbalances in neurotransmitter systems. Kimura Kuroda did this study. They found that PCBs and other environmental chemicals may disrupt normal neuronal development and cause some developmental brain disorders such as learning disability, ADHD, and autism. Rao found that prenatal exposure to things like organophosphates affected neurodevelopment in the first 3 years of life. What it did is it had a 5 times increased problem with psychomotor development index and a 2.4 times greater problem with the mental development index. And again, that's what's in Dursban. That's one of the ones that we use in our homes. Rebus Fido said that hexachlorobenzene affected social behavior. It was the organochlorine. Again, they're being outlawed or not used that much, but they come back and get us. Prenatal exposure, decreased behavioral competence at preschool ages. Roberts, again, mothers living within 500 meters, it's about 1/3 of a mile, who were exposed to organochlorines had a ratio of 6 to 1, greater degree of autism. Clarkson did a study with toxic metals, and they talked about the toxic metals: aluminum, arsenic, lead, manganese, mercury, thallium. And they showed that these have severe neurological damage and behavioral effects, and the greatest of these is suspected to be lead, mercury, and tin. And I will tell you when I do chelation challenges or whatever else, detoxification, these are 3 of the major things we find. Oftentimes when I have a child with tin, that's the child who doesn't speak. Grandin basically said developmental neurotoxicity of industrial chemicals. They found that they're recognized as causes of neurodevelopmental disorders, and exposure during early fetal development can cause brain injury at doses much lower than those affecting adult brain function. London said the environment as an etiological factor in autism, showed the possibility was gene interactions, and that exposures during pregnancy could cause or contribute to autism. And Messer said that flame retardants as a potential risk, was a potential risk possibly to autism. Here it talks about being a thyroid hormone mimetic, which is an endocrine disruptor. It caused neurodevelopmental defects in the children. Mule talked about the genetics of autism, where the recurrence rate in children was 2 to 8%. We find higher numbers now. In twin studies, they found a 60% concordance for classic autism in monozygotic twins versus a 0 in dizygotic. And they go on to say that phenotypes included that had the communication and social disorders had a 92% in monozygotic versus a 10% in dizygotic pairs. So they say their conclusion suggests that genes cause idiopathic autism, and epigenetic factors and exposure to environmental modifiers may contribute to variable expression of autism-related traits. Schubert did a synergistic test where he showed that if they added the lethal dose that killed 1% of lead or mercury or cadmium to the lethal dose that killed 1% of lead or mercury of cadmium, added it together, it killed 100% of the rats. We're almost done here. Stewart showed that cognitive development in preschool children prenatally exposed to PCBs and methylmercury affected them significantly, and they were good biomarkers for their performance. And there was a significant interaction between cord blood PCBs and maternal hair mercury levels. And so therefore, as I end, Chicken Little says, the sky is falling, the end is near. My question to you, is the end near? The end is definitely there, but I don't know if the end is near. So, when we look at the universe, when we look at our lives, when we look at what we want to do for the comforts of what we all want, it ain't rocket science to sit there and say the following. Even if you don't believe in all this biomedical stuff about autism, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that clean water, food, and air are better for you, especially when you are planning on getting pregnant. So therefore, the take-home message, make sure you play it safe, or as safe as you can. You have to take the risk. The guy running from first to second to steal a base, most of the time might get there. Sometimes he gets, caught out. You have to, you got to take some risk, but play it safe. Do the best you can, because it ultimately comes down to this. What does your tomorrow look like, and can we, this organization, help you get there? Thank you very much.